They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If that's the case, our nation's recidivism rate shows that our approach to criminal justice is insane.
So when I was growing up in Wayne County, it wasn't as developed as it is now. I can remember when I was a little girl, I used to ride my bicycle all over Pikeville, and as long as I was home by the time streetlights came on, and now I wouldn't let my children do that, but I did that, and everybody knew who you were, everybody knew who your parents were, everybody knew who your grandparents were. I grew up in Pikeville. I can remember when we got a Hardee's in 3rd grade. It was a really big deal that we got a Hardee's, and that was the only fast food restaurant in Pikeville other than like a little mom and pop grill. And then I remember when Walmart came, and then eventually Target came, and different shopping venues that we have. So I have watched it transform. When 795 was built, everything used to just be a 2-lane road from like Pikeville to Goldsboro. And now, I got on the big highway to come to work this morning.
Wayne County has always been a place where you could kind of be in a rural area most of the time, and I enjoyed going out. We had farming that we did around my community. I grew up on a farm. We grew tobacco and corn, soybeans. So I grew up in the rural area, and so Wayne County's been quite a place that I've enjoyed growing up in.
When I was growing up, we could go and play in the neighborhood, and if we did something wrong, that parent would say, "Hey, I know your parents. You want me to tell we see you in church Sunday. You want me to tell your mother," and so that kind of kept us in line. And but now, I don't think it's there anymore. You know what I'm trying to say. I know that was a good thing. The schools that you went to was in the neighborhood. The schools now are 15, 20 miles apart. In other words, the schools were more community-based. And so the community, like I said, I believe it takes a whole community to raise a child.
I remember when I first moved here 10 years ago, we discovered downtown Goldsboro, and it really reminded me of a ghost town. Now there's different boutiques, there's different shops, there's different eateries, and I've just really seen it grow over the number of years that I've been here.
What I recognized over the change of Wayne County over the years is the job market, more people moving in, more highways being developed through here, a lot more traffic, more schools. We have several more schools than it was when I first moved here.
The changes that I have seen has been in the way that I think we embrace and we accept all cultures in a way now that perhaps we did not have the same perspective or the same view of various cultures when I was growing up. And I think that's really important.
I was born and raised in Wayne County, just not this Wayne County. I'm originally from Detroit, which ironically also happens to be in Wayne County. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was born and raised in North Carolina. She was a part of that wave of African Americans who left the South in the 1940s and 50s and migrated to the North, trying to escape racism and looking for better opportunities. My mother was born in Detroit, but right after she was born, she was sent back to the South to be raised by her grandmother and her aunt in Salisbury, North Carolina. My father was born and raised in Kannapolis. Right after he and my mother got married, they followed that caravan up north and moved to Detroit. But North Carolina was home to him. After he and my mother separated, he moved back here. So And being in North Carolina, I feel like my family history has come full circle.
When I first started as a juvenile court counselor, the youth that we were serving at that time are now the youth that we don't even get in our office anymore. When I first started, it was a lot of your misdemeanor offenses, a lot of simple assaults, a few felony breaking and entering motor vehicles, and we had a caseload 25-ish. We utilized detention a lot. We dealt with a lot of truancy. We dealt with a lot of undiscipline. And now fast forward 20 years, the youth that we are seeing now has an increase in mental health diagnoses and mental health behaviors. We're seeing an increase, unfortunately, in violent crimes and violent offenses compared to years ago. We do have more resources now, but it seems like the mental health aspect has greatly increased. And we are trying to think more outside of the box and utilize every resource and every program that we have before we implement secure custody, because data shows the more times that a youth is placed in secure custody, that increases their chances of recidivism. So we want to try to prevent that by using programs that we have in-house and locally.
I've seen that now that violence has gotten a little more, it's got a little more worse, if you may, as far as, criminal activity and stuff like that. And I believe the reason that's taking place is that downtown especially, like I said, the kids are getting bored, and there's a lot of these families, a lot of these kids come from broken families, and trust is an issue, so therefore they're like, okay, so what am I going to do? Okay, I'll turn to the streets. My friends here, they say they got my back, and that becomes their new family. And the family dynamics at home are an issue in a lot of these cases, and that's a concern.
Over the course of the past 2 years that I've been here, I've seen the severity of crimes increase greatly. The first year was still we're still in that pandemic year. Schools were open and closed. It was like a revolving door. We were not getting that many referrals. I'm sure there was still some offenses going on with those juveniles, and we were getting a lot of referrals on the community service side. Now that schools have been open for the entire year, we're kind of reversing it. But on the community service side, we're getting cases that are so severe that the numbers are few and far in between as to which ones we actually get into our office, because some of them just go straight into secure custody. So that's how severe we're talking about.
I've seen things change within the school since I've been a school resource officer dramatically. Just more children. The demeanor is different. Some of the issues we have with the parents can be a little, I don't say nerve-wracking, but it takes a certain person to be a school resource officer. But I believe that the heart of the changes in the schools is just the signs of time. Facebook, all these computers, these cell phones, the internet. I believe all that has a lot to do with their demeanor and what's going on at home.
What I believe is at the heart or the change is the cell phone usage within the school system, and there, I think in order to teach any child, you have to first be able to get their attention, and I think because of the cell phone. We have a cell phone policy within the Wayne County Public School System, but on the same token, a lot of times the kids just don't follow the policy. And as a result, this is what you end up with. You have a lot of problems with kids being on the social media site and during the times when they should be in their homework, doing their work within the class, and so it's really a distraction.
So since we're seeing an increase in gun and gang violence, I wish I really knew what was the heart of the trend, because if I knew what was at the heart of it, then we could go back to the heart of it and try to fix it, or at least put programs on the front end to try to prevent it. The only thing that I can think of is maybe it's a sense of them wanting to belong, maybe peer pressure. I wish I had the answer to that. I think it is a very involved answer. I think it plays a role into the adults that are in the youth's life, who they're listening to. I really wish I had a better answer for that, because if I did, I think then we might could prevent some of the issues that we're having. But there definitely is a trend of more serious violent offenses occurring.
Whenever I look at a juvenile who may or may not commit another crime, again, we have to look at his home life, his interaction in the community, are churches involved in his life, or other community activities such as civic groups, are they taking a part? Are there mentors in his life that maybe the guardian or parent has not fulfilled? Those are the things, if he or she does not have that strong adult support, there will be almost 100% recidivism, in my opinion. And so many times they do not have a structure at home that they can rely on. And so when they're out of school and they lose that structure, then they go into other areas to look for their structure and their acceptance, which is many times gangs. And we see such violence now, even at the 14, 15-year-old level, that we used to not see till they were much older teens, like in the 18, 19-year-olds. But now we also have the law that will raise the age. Has sort of tied our hands as law enforcement, and it's overwhelmed our juvenile justice system to some degree, in that, you know, they can't deal with that many juveniles, and their hands are tied in many situations where we actually detain the young people. We can't arrest them because they're not of age, but we detain them, turn them over to the juvenile authorities, and then their hands are tied. They really have nothing to do with them. So if they're missing that parental structure or that guidance at home and don't have that, our kids are missing out. Well, I know it's kind of a cliche to a lot of people, but I believe when we took God out of the schools, we hurt ourselves to a major degree. So the kids today, we don't have the situation where there's a lot of structure at home in many situations, and so those kids don't really have a chance. They don't have a strong parental figure to look to. They go to school, and then there's so many things that the teachers and the school administration, their hands are tied these days in the way of discipline. And so when you completely lose the discipline in your life, then you're losing a lot that as you grow up, that you just don't have what that inner feeling, that moral character that you need to act as an adult. So as these kids are growing up, we're seeing a lot of changes in kids and adults as we try to enforce the law these days. Our juveniles today, we are seeing an uptick in violence, as we've talked about before, and things that do help, I think, in our society, and what we're seeing, particularly in our county, is the restorative justice program that has been implemented along with our community supporting schools, and a combination of things such as teen court, all of that combined to look at our juvenile justice system and to channel these kids away from such a legal system that is so harsh on them. I am not a sheriff that thinks, everybody needs to go to jail. We have so many problems that lead up to going to jail, that if we can be if I can find the right word, if we can interject ourselves in some way prior to a child meeting those criteria for going to jail, we are so far in advance of what we would be if they go to jail. We see such a recidivism rate when they get out of jail. But if they could be, if we can intervene at an earlier age, and I think our restorative justice program is doing that to a lot of degree, let's circumvent the jail time with supportive time earlier in life.
Restorative justice is designed as an educational opportunity for kids who have made a mistake. And I think we all know that kids can easily get mixed up with the wrong crowd. Peers are a vital component of the world that they live in. We know that we have had a decline of family through the years. And so the kids that are going through our restorative justice programs have made, in many cases, just a poor choice. It's not that they are bad children. And I really have a hard time when people talk about children being bad. I don't think any child chooses to be bad. I think they get mixed up in things and they start down the wrong path. So if we can keep them in school and provide opportunities for them to learn from their mistakes, then I think what we are doing is providing those educational opportunities.
We have restorative justice in District 8. We actually have it in Wayne, Lenoir, and in Greene counties. So in Wayne County, it is a JCPC program that is funded that we are able to make referrals to through diversions. If we also do consultations in our office. If we have someone who's coming into our office and having some issues with their child and they're wanting some program and some resources, we can refer directly to restorative justice. Also, our SROs in our school, if they have situations and they don't quite feel like it needs to come straight to juvenile justice, our SROs can refer directly to restorative justice. I cannot imagine my life without teen court and restorative justice. It plays such a vital role in juvenile justice. We utilize them for community service. We utilize them for teen court. We utilize them for some mediation services. It's just a top-notch program.
We are very closely aligned with our restorative justice program here in Wayne County. Our SROs, I insist that they be a part of the restorative justice program in an attempt to be mentors, be volunteers, and do the job that they do so that we can curb the youth from going to an extreme violent situation. Kids are going to be kids, but there are so many times if our SROs can be a part of their life, if other volunteers can be part of their life in the community, we can curb this activity of criminal activity, I think, and prevent the violence that we're currently seeing today.
When it comes down to teen court and juvenile court, the deciding factor for that is in our hands as SROs. And with teen court, the only ones that can be charged in teen court is by the assigned SRO or a replacement for that day. Juvenile court is going to be type of charges when it comes down to felonies. That's what we can send them to juvenile court on misdemeanors, but a few years ago we started doing our own in-house program where fighting, that's a no. We don't charge them for fighting unless they continue to fight on a regular basis. If teen court is not working for this individual, enough chances, then we will make that decision. If it's a year later or 6 months later, send them to juvenile court.
It's another type of resource that we can use. And like I say, when we have an issue where a kid involved in a fight, that's just another source where we can utilize and we can refer a student to. And like I say, we like to start at the bottom, which is teen court. And we say, when I approach the student, and I say, hey, what would you like to do? Would you like to go to teen court or would you like to go to juvenile court? And so a lot of them will say teen court. And then I will explain to them what's the difference between the two, teen court and juvenile court.
The restorative program fits, perfectly into what we do on a daily basis for the simple fact that we also got to keep in mind we're here for the kids, the juveniles that, have found themselves, making bad choices, but also we keep in mind with the victims too. There's some people that's been victimized from them choices. So therefore, it's very important that, we work together to say, okay, look, you made a mistake, but you need to realize that somebody's been victimized and somebody's been, there's a lot of trauma there. They're not going to forget about this. I'm not beating you up about it, but you need to understand you're not the only one that's suffering right now for this.
In Wayne County, we have teen court, and we have the pact with the schools, so that whenever we have a problem within our schools, we are able to channel our kids in many situations into the teen courts rather than the criminal court system. We align ourselves with our SROs to try to send them in that direction. We work with the schools so that they go in the direction of teen court. I think it's imperative because those kids are able to actually interact within a courtroom, act as the lawyers, act as the jury, and they're able to see how the criminal justice system works at a level that they can understand prior to them coming into contact with the adult criminal courts, and I think that's very important.
The work that the Restorative Justice Program does in this county is impactful. And I will use the word impactful because we see success coming out of this program. We have operated off of a traditional teen court model for years. During the pandemic, we were forced to look at new directions in an effort to serve our youth. And what we found was a sentencing circle model that has worked extremely well. And although I like the teen court model, I think the sentencing circle model has enabled us to drill down deeper and get to the basic root of some of the issues that our youth have been dealing with. I think the partnerships and the relationships that we establish with youth, with their families, it all serves to show kids that there is another way, and if you make good choices, that your life is going to have a better outcome. I know our Restorative Justice Director always makes this comment about when a child gets mixed up in the criminal justice system, it's like getting gum in your hair. Easy to get in, but hard to get it out. And I think about that so many times because once a child is involved in the criminal justice system, it is hard for them to get out. But our programs give kids a second chance. It gives them an opportunity to get out before they get all stuck up in that system. And it gives them a chance to see that they can learn from a poor decision and make better decisions.
On paper, our program may look like just a diversion program, but I can tell you that we are so much more than that. We build connections within the community, whether that is with other JCPC personnel, the school board, other juveniles who come into this program, different district judges, attorneys, everyone in Wayne County, we closely work with them to come and help these juveniles. Now, when you look at our service plans, our policies, it won't say that. But when we come together and do our sentencing circles with our community members, and when we have kids come back here wanting to volunteer, I think that speaks volumes on our programs.
The best thing that I like about the Restorative Justice Program is interacting with the children and the families. And it's been really real. You see how everyday life affects people on different levels, no matter what you come from, what level of life that you're in, what jobs that you hold. It's been an experience to be a part of something like this.
I was in junior year that I realized that it's easier than I thought to get involved in organizations and get up there to be a part of the conversation and to be a part of, changing what I wanted to be changed.
There was one student who came into our program and he was doing really, really good. He actually came back to volunteer with us in one of our sentencing circles, and just what he had to say about the other kid whose story we were listening to. He was talking about how the trouble he was getting into wasn't worth it. And it was kind of like a shocking moment to see him take the step back and give his advice as someone who has also been in trouble. He's doing really good now. His family is doing good, and seeing where he started from and where he is now, that's just a really amazing feeling to know that we were a part of that.
when I am out in the community and I run into some of the parents or children and they show me love, because we show love in this program. It's all about bringing that child that has done something wrong, trying to gear them back. So it makes me feel good that when we see other people and we make an impact on their lives and they're like, Miss Payne, I'm doing this, or I've not done that anymore.
I saw this individual come through as a referral, and then I saw them as a volunteer, and I saw them ask questions, and I was like amazed. I was like, where have you been? Like, we needed you here. Even though, it was through a, bad circumstance, they really came and they applied themselves. And that was a moment when I knew that this program really opened up eyes, doors, mindsets that just aren't available in like regular school.
The Restorative Justice Program in Wayne County is an excellent program. I appreciate the individuals who participate in that program, whether it be on a paid level or on a volunteer level. It's imperative that we have that, and that kid, that youth, that juvenile or that youth, see that they have a chance. And without the Restorative Justice Program in Wayne County, I think we would be losing out on so much.
Although I can give so much credit to our staff for these restorative justice programs and the hard, dedicated work that they do every single day. But I also need to give a big shout out to all of our community partners. Habitat for Humanity, the Sheriff's Department, the Soup Kitchen, the Boys and Girls Club, the Wayne County Public Library, all of those partners that allow us to send our kids to their community service sites. But another great partnership, I've mentioned our SROs and the Sheriff's Department. We are part of a school justice partnership agreement, which allows us to work very closely with our SROs and with the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office. Without those partners and the cooperation and the collaboration that we do, we would not be able to offer these programs. The school resource officers are our unsung heroes. They come into this office, and it's not to say, I've got another referral, but it's to say, how can we best work with this student? And that is something that to me is crucial to this program, because SROs have really, they've had a lot of focus on them in the news throughout the United States over these past few years. We could not do our work without the support of our SROs.
I just feel like these big systems that oversee a lot, they kind of just, get on through, push on through. They got to get through what they need to get through, and it's not enough of attention, placed on the humanity of these children, like they're kids, you know what I mean? And, I just think without this program, you would get way more individuals stuck in this cycle of, like, I'm going to do it because they expect me to do it, and there's no way to get out of doing this, and I have to do this to be a part of this and to do this. And, it's just, I've seen it play out with my family members. I've seen it play out all the time, and it's just, with this program, it gives individuals that time to actually think about it with their family, to think about how it's impacted them, to think about how it's impacted their future, to really know that, somebody cares even for like 2 seconds is just monumental. And I just think that without this program, that wouldn't exist.
If teen court wasn't available in this community, it would be detrimental for the community. We already have a high number of cases where children are getting in trouble daily. I believe that there needs to be more programs like this, or maybe a 9 to 5 where it's available. Even if the program is going into the schools and going to visiting different schools to talk about it more like they would do in the auditoriums, to make it be known, to prevent the children to come here, to let it be known, like, this is what we do, maybe mock trials and things like that. But I believe that without it, the children would be in very, very bad shape.
If the restorative program wasn't in effect, we would have more complaints, if you may, we will have more cases going through the courtroom that don't need to be going through. These cases are not like fighting in schools, like I mentioned earlier in the interview. There's some things that needs to be handled at a certain level to give these kids a fighting chance. Because a lot of these kids, first thing they hear is, oh, I gotta go to court, they automatically shut down. Okay, now they have no kind of positive attitude moving forward, they're just expecting the worst. If you keep the restorative program in place, for example, teen court and stuff like that, they're like, okay, they're giving me a second chance here. Now it's up to me to go ahead, own up to my mistake. Let's see what they have to offer, what I need to do at this level, and then I can move from there.
If we didn't have this program, our community would be at a great loss. And I don't say this lightly when I think that our community would be putting a lot more juveniles in the juvenile justice system instead of diverting them through our program.
I can't imagine not having restorative justice as a resource for us to utilize. I really cannot. I've been able to collaborate with other chiefs across the state and talking with them about the programs they have compared to the programs we have. I feel like we have the best restorative justice, and hearing them talk, like, I'm super proud of the programs that we have, and I can't imagine not having that resource to be able to refer to, because our restorative program is so good and so organized, and they're just so easy to work with. They're very accommodating to the families that we work with. They're very accommodating to my court counseling staff. Even when COVID hit, they just kept right on rolling. So the respect and the gratitude I have for them is immeasurable.
And so in closing, what I would just like to say is this job is about community. It is about partners, collaboration, community, and working together. This year, we have had the opportunity to work with NC State through their Institute for Emerging Issues, and it's allowed us to connect more dots, expand our breadth. It's given us the opportunity to learn about how some other organizations are working across North Carolina. And as we continue and as we move forward, my hope is that we will continue to grow. We know that funding in the nonprofit world is always going to be a challenge. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that it's the relationships that change people. It is not a canned program, it is not a curriculum, but it's relationships and that caring adult in the lives of the students that we work with every day. And then we take those stories and we measure success one child at a time.
We take what we do seriously because we understand that we have a responsibility to our community and to the youth we serve to figure out how we can help keep them from reoffending. And the vast majority of the kids who successfully complete our program don't recidivate. We don't see them again. They often come back as volunteers, but not as referrals. I tell people that getting involved in the criminal justice system is like getting gum in your hair. Easy to get in, but hard to get out. Our number one goal is to keep kids out. If insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, then at CSS, we want to do something different.